Well, hello again. As you know, I'm not a rabbi, I'm not a pastor, but I'm a reporter, and I've got some good things to show to you, because a lot of the churches and a lot of the synagogues haven't been telling the people the truth. Well, what I'm going to do is just show you from the good book. Now, about 2 weeks before the Egypt uprising last month in February, I told you that I think it would be the trigger. I meant the trigger to start what you might all call the World War III, or the Middle East, or the war against Iran, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's a trigger because, as I said then, and I repeat, it will spread, it will expand, and it will be like a cancerous sore ready to blow up like a boil. And it is, as you know. Since I last talked to you, Libya has now made a big noise in this big bang, and Bahrain has. Now, I want to talk about something, because it's hotting up so bad. I want to talk about something that has been the subject of a controversy with whether you are a Jew or a Christian. It's been the biggest controversy throughout the last couple of 100 years, and that's about Gog and Magog. I'm going to read something to you from out of the good book, and then I'm going to show you what it appears that all of the theologians have missed out on. First of all, go to Ezekiel 38 with me and read it with me. I'll put it up on the screen. By the way, I'm going to put up, not only on the screen, a lot of details and text and reference material, but I'm also going to put in the notes that are underneath the YouTube video, and you can click on those to go to previous reports. Alright, Ezekiel 38. Thus says Yahweh God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal. Now, if you want to know who that Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal are, if you go back to Genesis, I think probably chapter 10, you'll find out who they are. I will turn you around, and I will put hooks in your jaws. I will lead you out, and with all of your army and horsemen, and splendidly clothed, the great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Now, get the words there. Who is going to incite them, grab hold of them, put a hook in their jaw, drag them out into a war? Yahweh the Creator God is. At this stage, I'll just mention to you, when Yahweh God pulled the people out of Egypt, he was setting the king of Egypt up. When I say he was setting him up, Yahweh purposefully poured out 10 plagues on that king and over Egypt, and the chief reason, the main reason, was to show his awesome power over any of the gods that were worshipped in that era of time. And as you know, Yahweh kept telling Moses to do something, but in the same mouthful he'd say, well, he won't do it, but anyway, go and try. I put it into his heart not to take any notice of you. All right, you might think that because I'm going to blow the whistle here and show what Yahweh God is going to do in the very near future, you might think that the people that are behind the New World Order, the United Nations, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergs, the Illuminati, the Masons, you might think that they'd be a wake up and back off, but they won't. Just as the mind of the king of Egypt was blacked out, so also are these people, their minds are blacked out, and they can't see that they're doing anything wrong. Now, there's an interesting point in about verse 5 of Ezekiel 38. Persia's there. Well, Persia, Iraq and Iran, but it also is Egypt, and that Persian Empire also included Bahrain, Libya, Tunisia. In other words, all of the Central African countries, all the way up to Turkey. That was the Medo-Persian Empire. Well, they're into it. and Libya. It even mentions Libya in the good book. And with them, all of them are in this army. To what? Come against who? Israel. That's right. And who's calling them there? YAHWEH is. It says, after many days you will be visited. It will be in the latter days. Some Bibles call it in the time of the end. Or it will be in the last days. You will come to my land. Who's speaking? YAHWEH. Saying what? You will all come to my land. Hello? It was his land. Then we all know that Israel was taken captive in 721 BC. We know that Judah went into captivity with Babylon in 586 BC. Who's there now? Well, if you look at some of my previous reports, you will see that the Khazaria Jews that came out of up near Georgia, Shetnya, they're the ones that are there now. They are fake Jews. They're make-believe Jews. They're no more Jews out of the Abraham, Isaac and Jacob than your pet dog. And their doctrine is chiefly about the oral law, the Talmud, the Mishnah and the Gemara. Well, I'm going to show you about that on this report. Now, in verse 10 it says, YAHWEH God, on that day it shall come to pass that the thoughts will arise in your mind and you will make an evil plan. Who's talking? YAHWEH's talking. What's happening? He's putting it into the mind of the United Nations, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, the Rockefellers, the banking cartel, the International Criminal Syndicate. He's putting it into their mind that they can cook up some evil deed and they will get away with it. That's what he's doing. And of course they react accordingly, exactly the same as the king of Egypt did. Remember the words of king of Egypt said, who's this YAHWEH God? Never heard of him. What do I have to take notice of him for? Now, that says YAHWEH God, on that day, this is an example, when my people Israel dwell safely. Hang on, they're not dwelling safely now, so it is in some time in the hence when they are dwelling safely. Will you know it? Yeah, we'll know it, of course. Then you will come from your place out of the far north, you and many peoples with you. There will be a mighty army of you. You will come up against my people Israel like a cloud to cover the land. And it will be in the time of the end, in the last days, in the latter days. So it's yet to happen. Hasn't happened yet. This has nothing to do with people coming out of Russia in Boeing 707s, coming down to take residence into Israel in 1948. Nothing to do with that at all. You've got a lot of doctrines running around the world that tell you that this all happened in 1948. No, it didn't. It's yet to happen. There's an interesting point here that you need to take a note of. It will be in the last days, in the latter days, whichever Bible you've got, that who's speaking? YAHWEH will bring to you against my land, so that the nations may know me, when I am hallowed in you, O Gog. I will be hallowed in you before their eyes. Before whose eyes? United Nations, CFR, Rockefeller mob, International Criminal Syndicate, banking cartel. That's whose eyes he will be seen to be in existence and will be hallowed. Through what action? Through this action of calling them to war, set up to be destroyed. I like those words. They may know me when I am hallowed in you, O God, before their eyes. Thus says YAHWEH God, are you he of whom I have spoken in former days by my servants, the prophets of Israel, who prophesied for years in those days that I would bring you against them? Now, I've made a note, it'll come up on your screen. YAHWEH is setting up this whole scenario only to show his awesome power to everybody in the world. As I've shown you in the previous report, there's not going to be any rapture because the idol Jesus and Mary came all the way down to you, and a little bit I'll show you on this report. It came down to you from Jereboam, 900 BC. So, if you think that Yahweh can't defeat the HARP, H-A-A-R-P, the chemtrails, if you think he can't defeat the bogus viruses, pandemics, vaccination poisons, wait and see. Because then he says to the leaders are blinded. That example that I gave you before, I think you can find it in Exodus 10, when Yahweh said to Moses, go and tell the people, go into Pharaoh. He says, I have hardened Pharaoh's heart and the hearts of all of his servants. So Yahweh has filled all the minds of the king and his servants that they won't recognise what he's doing, and that they're all going to be destroyed, and that they're all set up to be destroyed. So you can bet your bottom dollar Yahweh has done the same trick against the Rockefellers, the World Health Organization, the Masons, the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, the International Crime Syndicate, the CFR, Trilateral Commission. Yep. They've all been blinded, but not only those leaders are blinded, all of their staff, all of their bureaucrats, all of their administration will be and has been blinded by the hand of Yahweh until Yahweh fulfills his promise here. And if you think he won't do it, yes, again, go back into the history books and you'll see that every time Yahweh made a promise that he's going to do something, he did. He goes on to say, if you look at, or get this mixed up with, shall we say, the Christian doctrines of the New Covenant, and you know what I'm talking about, the whole world is full of the New Covenant doctrine. The New Covenant doctrine is, we're not under the law now. We're under grace now through the blood of Jesus Christ. There's going to be a rapture. He's coming back to save us all. And those that are dead in the earth are going to be resurrected and taken up. You know, this is the New Covenant. The New Covenant is that old Israel failed Yahweh, and the Christians think they've taken the place as the spiritual or new Israel. And that the New Covenant is talking about them. And they'll even quote it going back into 1948. No, it's not. But I'll tell you something which is going to unfold in your eyes in a minute. In Isaiah prophecy, yes, Israel was still alive and kicking, part of it, before they went to 586 into Babylon. The ones before that, all of Israel, 10 tribes, had been scattered throughout Assyria, 721 BC. We're talking about a new Israel. The Israel in Jeremiah prophecy is an Israel, meaning those who are his new Israel. And when I say new Israel, the old Israel did not measure up to being Yahweh's people. As you know by the chart that I showed you, all of the Israel kings, none of them kept the law of God. In the kings of Judah, from David all the way through to the end, only 5 of those kings kept the commandments of God. Now if you think the new Israel, or those who call themselves the new Israel, under the leadership of the rabbis or the pastors of the Christian church, if you think they can be the new Israel and they don't keep the law of Yahweh God, think again. The book is full of thousands of warnings to Israel and Judah for not keeping his laws. And when they didn't keep his laws, he kicked them out. As a matter of fact, Yahweh says, don't pray to me about these people. Don't offer me any prayers about them. I won't hear your prayers. They get up my nose like a menstruous woman. That's the words from Yahweh. So if you think for 1 second that you can follow an idol God, the Jesus God, or any other religion God, and not keep the 10 commandments of Yahweh God and be in his team as the new Israel, forget it. So you've got a new Israel here that he's talking about. And notice something. The words here are the key to tell you how you can identify that you're talking about a new Israel. I'll read them to you. All right. Children of Israel from the land. Okay. As Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, but the people in the world will be saying, Yahweh lives who brought up and led the descendants of the house of Israel from the north country and from all of the countries in the world where he had driven them. And then they shall dwell in their own land that he promised to give to them way back at Abraham's time. So get those words. We won't be talking about Yahweh God that brought the people out of Israel. The whole world will be talking about Yahweh God who brought the people out of every country where he had dispersed them throughout the world. Yahweh will be referred to as the God that brought Israel back out of the north country. Now I don't know what you want to do with the north country. I don't know what it means. Does it mean China? Europe? Russia? Or the combination of the lot? You see, the false preachers and the rabbis in Judaism have perpetrated and regurgitated the false doctrines all the way through to today. And you can easily tell that they are not part of any group of people that Yahweh would call his people, his Israel today. And remember, the word Israel is a word that was nominated, given to man by Yahweh God. And it was given to Jacob because he had wrestled with man and God and overcome sin. So the word Israel is just talking about a bunch of people that have wrestled with their conscience, wrestled with God, wrestled with other conscience thinking, and settled down to keep the law of Yahweh God. That's what it means. And that's what it's referring to. Now, to give you an idea of how many different religions that were thrown into the mix by the satanic forces and pitting one against the other, and if I don't get time on this video, I'll just mention it now. The symbolism out of Islam, Islam is following Allah, or they changed the name of their God to Allah. The symbolism in Islam religion is almost identical to the symbolism that's in Judaism. The Star of David is not. It is a pagan emblem. And then you've got the cross, the emblem in Christianity, and I can show you pictures of the cross going all the way back to Jereboam, 900 BC. So those symbols join together those three. And the satanic forces are very smart about this, because they get Christians to kill Islam, Islam to kill Christians, they get Jews to be killed by Christians, and so on, pitting one against the other. They're all under the same satanic influence. We'll cover that later on. Now, talking about the new religions, how many have come into being, you've got the Grace Communion International, which was the Wide World Church of God under Armstrong. You've got the Baptist people, about 1686, came into being by Roger Williams. The Seventh-day Adventists came into being about 1863, Joseph Bates, James White, Ellen G. White. The Mormons came into being about 1844 with Joseph Smith. The JWs came into being 1872 with Charles Taze Russell. And then you've got the Christian Science. She had a vision. By the way, a lot of these all had a vision. Helen White had a vision. Charles Taze Russell, Mary Baker Eddy, here she is, 1879, she has a vision. And she kicks off Christian Science. But if you look at Protestantism, which came into being by 1536, Calvin, Martin Luther, John Knox, Zwingli, and Thomas Cranmer, most of these people had some form of dream or vision. And one of them, for the Mormons, as you know, he said he was told where the golden plates were. Well, if you want to believe all that, let's see what Yahweh says in the good book about it. talking about the Jews, because the Jews came into Christianity doctrine, that came out of BAAL. Now you saw that in my previous film, and I'll put the notations of it on the screen and in the comments under the movie. Just to cap it for you, Rabbi Gamaliel, who was in the Sanhedrin in the mid-1st century CE, he was a grandson of the great Jewish teacher Hillel, and he's a teacher of the BAAL religion that came out of Jereboam 900 BC. And you've already found out that the BAAL religion, which is the Queen of Heavens and the Sun, and there you've got the pictures of the Queen of Heavens or Madonna and the baby, that came all the way down 1,000 years BC. Nothing to do with Mary and Jesus. That came out of BAAL worship. There's nothing to do with Jesus at all. It's referred to, by the way, in the New Testament in Acts 22:3, because he's a teacher of Paul. This fella, Gamaliel, is a teacher of Paul in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. He was a teacher of, capital letters, the way. The way. And it'll even tell you in Acts 19 and Acts 24, it will tell you that people regarded the way as a sect. And that is the sect today which you call Christianity. With the Jews, there's different factions. Some, as I said, returned to the Hebrew, and they took with them the oral law, which they got out of Babylon, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Gemara. I'll give you a name of a couple of them. Rabbis in the late antiquity regarded the oral law as having as much authority as the Torah. A fellow called Rashi, we're talking 1040, 1105, he was a Jewish scholar. You've got another fellow called Moses ben Maimon, or Maimonides. Then you've got Rambam, 1135, 1204. The Hasidic Jews in the 18th century, and they were led by a fellow called Baal Shem Tov. Then you've got the Lubovich in 1951, and one of their key people is a fellow Menachem Mendel Schneerson. They revered him so much that he's going to be, to them, he's going to be their Messiah. He's coming back. And of course he's hot to trot with the Chabad, Hasidic. They believed also that he would manifest himself as the Messiah. And of course, in their doctrine, they believe that that will start the so-called Messianic era. And then when they all become righteous, their Messiah will return. When you look at this nonsense, let me read to you what Jeremiah says. And you can look at Jeremiah 16 if you want to follow me. Jeremiah 23:16. Do not listen to the words of these prophets, pastors and rabbis, prophesy, who preach to you. Do not listen to them, Yahweh said. They make you worthless. They speak a vision of their own heart. It is not from the mouth of Yahweh that they speak, but they say it is. They tell lies. They continually say to those who despise me, Yahweh has said this, you shall have peace. Today, you've got a lot of silly doctrines running around the world that will have peace. Don't worry about it. Jesus is going to save us. We're all going to be whisked out of this. There's going to be time of tribulation, but then there's going to be the rapture. Sorry. No, there's not. Now, all those people who believe that, just the same as all those people who believed in the error and the lies that the leaders gave to them in the couple of thousand years BC, they were mercilessly killed. It's going to be a repeat. All of the people that believe in the nonsense that is made up, and you can only find it in the New Testament, and the New Testament was tacked onto the Old Testament by the satanic forces, written by Eusebius. All of that, throw it away. It's telling you lies. You're reading here what Jeremiah is saying to you. Have nothing to do with it. Take no notice of it. He says in Jeremiah further on, there will be a violent whirlwind, it will fall violently on the head of all these wicked people. The anger of Yahweh will not turn back until he has executed and performed the thoughts of his heart. As I've already shown you, Yahweh makes sure that his enemies come up ready, and then he virtually said, come on, give me your best hit, show me what you can do, and then bang, the same as he did destroy Egypt. If you remember, he did the same thing with King Hezekiah. 185,000 soldiers coming down out of Assyria, zap. They walked out the next day and they're all dead. Who by? Not by the soldiers of Israel, but by the hand of Yahweh God. There's lots of examples of Yahweh bringing the enemy into focus and then zapping them out. Any other gods that you've got that can do that, tell me. You won't find there is one. He goes on to say, in the last days, or in the latter days, you will understand all this perfectly, because I have sent these prophets, pastors and rabbis, yet they ran. I have not sent them. They're not from me, Yahweh says. I have not spoken to them, yet they have been preaching to you. But if these pastors and rabbis had stood in my counsel, used my words and preached the truth, and had caused my people to hear my words, then they would have turned the people from their evil ways and from the evil of their doings. Yahweh says, am I a God that's near to hand? Yahweh says, I'm not a God that's far away. Can anybody hide themselves in a secret place from me, that I cannot find them? Do not fill heaven and earth, says Yahweh. Do I not fill heaven and earth? This is what Yahweh says. I'm everywhere. I know what you're doing. I know what you're thinking before you think it. I know what's in your heart before you do it. And in Jeremiah 23:25, this is what Yahweh says. I have heard what the prophets, the pastors and the preachers have been saying, who prophesy lies in my name. They've been saying, I have had a dream. I've had a vision. As I said before, Mary Baker Eddy, Helen G. White, Charles Taze Russell, the Mormon people, they've all had visions. I have dreamed. How long will this be in the heart of the prophets who prophesy these lies? Indeed, they are prophets, pastors and rabbis of deceit, deception of their own hearts, who try to make my people forget my name. Now we know what the Jews have done there, don't we? Since they were warned by Jeremiah 44. Jeremiah told the people, if you do not stop idol worship, worshipping Baal, Yahweh will take himself away from you. Yahweh said subsequently, I will take my name out of their mouth. They will no longer utter my name anymore. And sure enough, to this day, roughly 2,500 years later, they won't utter the name Yahweh. They will read it, write it in the Tanakh in the correct manner, read it as Adonis, utter the name as Hashem. I gave you all this in the previous report. And here's Jeremiah saying that, trying to make people forget my name. I said to a Jewish friend of mine the other day, in a conversation, I said, why don't you go back and call your creator God by the name of Yahweh? Oh, he was absolutely shocked. Oh, don't say that name in front of me, that's blasphemy. I said, do you think, if you love that creator God Yahweh, do you think he's going to zap you? No. On the contrary, all through the good book, Yahweh says, my people will call me by my name. So let's go back to this. Who try to make my people forget my name using Hashem, and by their dreams, which everyone tells his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name for Baal. That Baal today, as I said before, is Jesus and Mary. In Jeremiah 23:30 it says, therefore, behold, I am against the prophets, pastors and rabbis, says Yahweh, who steal my words, every one from his neighbour. And behold, I am against the prophets, pastors and rabbis, says Yahweh, who use their tongues and says, he says, Yahweh says, behold, I am against those pastors and rabbis who prophesy false dreams, who teach you false doctrines. They are the words out of the good book, folk. I'm a reporter, and I can show you a truckload of evidence just from the book, not my opinion, because my opinion is worthless. I'm fully aware that what I've just given to you in this report, the rabbis will be very angry with me, and so will the Christian church and the pastors, because it does not measure up to what they have been handing to you for hundreds of years.